All right, welcome back. Live at Drew's house, another edition. Hope everybody's doing all right. And as I was saying, staying healthy through the COVID and hopefully getting some vaccines and all that stuff. So, again, Dan Shaughnessy, my guest. Very excited about this. Dan, I was doing my little intro and I said, always one of my favorite writers growing up and to this day. You've stood the test of time with me personally. So, thank you for the great writing over the years. And thanks for joining the show.
My pleasure to be here, and thanks for your loyalty to Reading the Globe.
Absolutely. Let's start off. Opening day. What a time of year. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the weather's going to hold up okay. Might be not the greatest, but I mean, it's been a drought here, obviously. I mean, fans haven't seen the Sox in a year and a half since the end of the 19 season. Fans haven't seen them in person. I know it's limited, whatever, 4,000, 5,000, whatever it's going to be. But I was at the Celtics on Monday night, first time they had fans, and it was nice. The people made a lot of noise for the people that were there, and of course they pump in a lot of helpful noise too. But it definitely enhances the dynamic for everybody, for the players, for the media people, and certainly the people that get to go, the fans. I think they'll really enjoy themselves tomorrow.
Yeah, it makes pretty amazing how much noise a couple thousand fans can make. I have found.
Yeah, the Celtic thing. Because I've been to like high school games at the Garden. And you might have 2,000 people, maybe 3,000 people, and they're clustered down by the court, which you don't have in this case. They're spread out. But I think because of the artificial noise and the attempts that they're spread around the building, it was amplified to a pretty good degree. I was surprised.
What do you think the main storyline here is for this opening day as we come up on first pitch? Is it the new players? Is it the fans in the stands? What do you think is the main storyline?
I mean, there's a lot of things, for them, it's kind of a redemption, season. They need to make people like them again. And, that last year was just a disaster. The management of the team has driven off a lot of fans. People who go to games, who go to Fenway Park, who go to opening day, they're not people who boo. You have a very, glass half full kind of crowd there when you make the effort to get there. So they'll be warmly received. But I think in the region, I think there's a lot of, people kind of looking at them sideways, wondering what they're about and can they recover from the disaster of last season. And people are still mad about trading Mookie Betts. They're mad that NESN can't agree with YouTube and have the games available to so many people. There's been no accountability from ownership. It's a little bit of an anonymous roster. They're going to hit. The pitching staff is sketchy as ever. The starting staff particularly sketchy. So it's just a lot of questions about the team. And luckily for them, they're playing the Orioles 6 times in the first 9 games. So you have a good chance to get out quick and kind of turn the narrative in their favor.
We have a mutual friend in Johnny Miller, and I talked with him early this morning, dark and early. He's an early riser. And he said, Dan, he knew I was going to be talking to you. And he said, Dan's not as optimistic as me usually. I think his quote was, Dan's never too optimistic, but I think he'll agree with me that this will be a better team than last year.
Well, I mean, that they can't be any worse. That was not professional. It was not MLB for the most part. They're just tossing guys out there who weren't major league pitchers. And that's a very low bar. It was the worst team since 1965. It was a 60-game season, and they did trend a little bit better toward the end. But, yeah, they're committed to not pretending to do that again. Whatever that was, it was management sent the message out early that the year doesn't matter, and everybody performed accordingly. So I think, getting quarterback in the dugout certainly is a positive for the players. They love him. And, he was here when they won the World Series. It's just 3 years ago now. And they, like I said, they hit in spring training. They always hit. They hit last year. I think they were like 3rd in hitting. So that's not going to be a problem probably. But the defense and the pitching are all over the map.
You travel outside of Boston across the country, and I think some people are sometimes still surprised that you guys are obviously a Patriots town now, right? And I still, baseball is my top sport, and I kind of say the heart of it, you're still a baseball city, and even though all the Patriots success, it's still these people live and die with the Red Sox. And I know from a diehard fan, my whole life, trading away a player like Mookie Betts just doesn't sit well. And I have heard so many complaints about, you're paying $10 a beer, $12 a beer. And it's like, how do you justify trading away a player that does every single thing right? And I know it still doesn't sit well with a lot of fans.
Well, and it shouldn't. I mean, again, if you're going to own the Red Sox, the cost of doing business is to keep your best players. it's of course it's a ton of dough, 300 million north, whatever, but don't be promoting the narrative of he wasn't going to stay here anyway, and now we have payroll flexibility. That's a bunch of BS. People don't buy that. They're too smart here. If you want the player, you match the highest offer. You talk to him, and you make sure that it doesn't get to that point, which they got to. So really an unforgivable mistake, and they need to claw back from that. But people are right to be outraged about that. It was not right.
The ownership, but I mean, they have brought all these World Series to this place, though. I mean, I do think when there's criticism, you have to kind of look at it relatively speaking. It is pretty amazing what they've been able to do. I think the changes to an old ballpark have been great, pretty much overwhelmingly great. You can say you might want a new building or new stadium, but the place is a cool place to see a game still, and they put out good teams. So I wonder, how do you feel the overall grade right now is of ownership? And of course, everybody knows who you work for. I know that can be difficult at times, but the overall grade over the past decade, it's certainly so.
Well, I mean, the past decade, they've won 2 World Series. I mean, in their 20 years here, they've won 4. So that's the best in 100 years. I mean, and the ballpark improvements they've made it really a destination on the Freedom Trail, and tourists need to go there. And they've made it as good as they can make it under the circumstances where you still have the cramped seats and the poles and the parking and the bathrooms and whatnot. But it's as good as it can possibly be. And they've spent a lot of money to do that. And they've given you 4 world championships. So that's great. And the totality of their stewardship is great. That doesn't cut them a pass for me, a lifetime pass to do what they did last year, or to be cheaping out on talent now and under the guise of draft and development. That takes a while. You can do both. When Theo was here, they did both for those 10 years where they drafted and developed and won at the same time. I mean, the whole team that won at 18 was Theo who drafted and developed those guys. The Dombrowski thing was different. He came in, he traded all the farm system, and they signed free agents, and they spent a lot of money, and they won. They had a great season in 18, and now they're paying the price for that. They've changed philosophies a lot. I'm not all about what they've been doing the last year and a half, 2 years, and I don't give them any credit for that. And I think they've been selling a false narrative. But if the product improves on the field, I just picked up my New York Post here, and the 6 experts there, they all pick them to finish 4th, which is exactly where they should be picked. Maybe they'll supersede that. That would be a good start to get up to 3rd, to play 500 ball, and they're capable of that.
One more Red Sox specific before I jump to a couple other topics. The Alex Cora situation, just what do you make of him? Kind of a weird year after a weird year off, forced year off, as it turns out.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't vote Alex for the Hall of Fame now. I think that the cheating and the documentation, it's bad. But I like him, and I think he's good for the team. And I understand there's a segment of fans out there who are not forgiving about that. I understand that. That's the way I am when I vote for Hall of Fame. I don't forgive the cheaters. But this isn't Hall of Fame we're talking about. We're talking about managing your team in 2021, and I'm okay with the move. Not everybody is. I understand those who aren't. Players love this guy. He understands the job, and he brings great gravitas to the dugout, unlike anybody they could have there at this point. So I think that's overall a good thing, but I understand those who are pushing back against it.
Again, Dan Shaughnessy joining us here on the Boston Globe. One thing I've always admired about you is, you'll take some heat for some pieces and even piss players off quite a bit. But one of the last ones I remember was with David Ortiz, and I remember reading an article and you said, I was curious about, I think it was about the steroids, and for whatever reason it was back in the news, and you began the article just by saying, and I was curious, so I walked right up to his locker and we had a conversation. And I've always admired that about you, that just go right up to the guy or woman and address it. And you've always thought that's the play, right?
Well, yeah, that's how I was trained, and that's what we did coming into it. And unfortunately, that availability is no longer there, and I don't know if it's ever coming back with the abundance of caution. And I think the teams are going to get real used to the moat separating us from them, and really like just doing everything by Zoom and group things, and everything can stay in house now. It has with the Bruins and the Celtics, and no one knows what's going on anymore because we can't walk up to a guy and do that sort of thing anymore. So that's a loss. But yes, in my training and in my compass, the way to do the job was always to go up to the source and ask the questions. And if you didn't like it, which David didn't, be around to take it the next day or whenever you can see him again. So I understand they don't always like what we're up to, but it is sports, it's entertainment. And there's a modicum of, I don't know, looking out for the consumers, which is you, the fans here, and asking the questions that not every fans get to ask. So I think that's part of our mission, and I've tried to do that. I appreciate you pointing it out, and hopefully someday we'll be able to get back there and do it again.
What was Poppy like? Did he hold that against you for a while? Such an
Yes.
epic personality in this town, you know?
It was a little stunning because we had a 10-minute conversation with my tape recorder going the whole time, and then I quoted him. I wrote the story with all of his words, and that was it. We were never right after that. And I mean, I understand, but it's unfortunate. And hey, he was great to the fans, great to the media. He performed his clutch abilities. He's going to sail into the Hall of Fame next year in the first ballot, in my belief. I think that's going to happen. So he doesn't need me. He's got David Ortiz way out there, and everybody loves him and all that stuff. So, and again, a guy who's remembered extremely fondly in this region. I mean, everybody loves the guy, and that's hard earned. I understand why they do.
I have an uncle who tells me, yeah, you guys love Poppy, but I got to tell you, you never got to see Yaz play.
Oh, you have a smart uncle. And I mean, Yaz, for 1 year, had a better year than David ever had, which was 67, because Yaz was playing defense and, won the Triple Crown and carried his team over the final weeks of the season. That's not been replicated by anybody here. But Yaz never won a World Series. David won 3. David hit, 550 homers, whatever it is. So, I mean, David, his numbers overall are monstrous. And I understand why people would vault him ahead of Yaz in Sox lore, but I am with your uncle to this point. 23 seasons, 3,000 hits, 400 homers. I'll stick with Yaz.
It's not going to go over well at the dinner table this summer. Again, Dan Shaughnessy joining us here. You mentioned Theo Epstein a little bit earlier. Obviously took that big job a little higher up baseball, not with a team anymore, organization, but he's now kind of overseeing whatever that title is. It seems like a good fit. I wonder from your perspective, I keep hearing that kids aren't into baseball anymore. Is this true? I don't quite feel that, but maybe it is true. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you're a young guy and you'd have a better sample of this than I do, but I don't think young people, the game isn't as conducive to the things that young people like now, which is, fast action, betting, fantasy, violence, and over in 2 hours. I mean, those things, and the other sports have a lot more of that. They also have more social media consciousness with their athletes, reaching out to the fans individually. And I just think that baseball, the pace of play is killing it. Not enough balls in play. And people don't have the patience for 4-hour games, nor should they. I understand that. So it's an older demographic that still embraces baseball, and I'm glad they're there. But it's going to be tough to replace them with the next generations. And kids still play, and it's popular at the high schools and all that, but it's not anywhere near what it was. I understand that. It's evolution. I don't bay at the moon about it, but the game really is at kind of a critical mass right now to retain a young audience.
I don't like the hokey changes. I don't like the idea of just throwing a person on second base randomly. I think there's real ways to get in the batter's box and let's go. Less trips to the mound. I like all that stuff. It's all been talked about, but the hokey changes are the ones that get me personally.
Well, yeah, I don't like the artificial stuff. And, they're talking about outlawing shifts, which, I mean, shifts have been around for 120 years and it's up. You get 9 defenders, you put them where you want. It's up to the offense to figure it out. I want the offense to have to figure that out. I don't want artificial rules where you got to have 2 guys on each side of second base. I think that's phony, and it's rewarding the offense for not changing, for not adjusting. And so I'm not in favor. And yeah, the gimmicky things, I'm kind of with you. You're an unusual old school young guy, so we appreciate that.
I've been called that before. Again, Dan Shaughnessy joining us. Hall of Fame, you mentioned that earlier. Everybody gets criticism. I mean, there's no right, I guess there's no perfect ballot. Maybe there is. No, but what is the deal with the Hall of Fame? Like, I know you've made your stance clear. You're going to take the steroids guys out, I believe is what you've said. I'll let you you give me your stance on the Hall of Fame. I don't want
I am guarding the wall. I've stayed on the wall to not vote for anybody who cheated, anybody who I think was cheating, which is totally unfair. I get it. It's one man's vote. We get to impose our vote the way we choose. And you try to be consistent. That's the best I can do. But it's getting to be much harder. And I feel badly. There's a Hall of Fame right now. It's got Harold Baines in it and Barry Bonds is not, that's a little zany because Barry Bonds is like twice, 10 times the player as Harold Baines. Nothing against Harold. And I think Bonds and Clemens might go off the ballot forever after next year and never be seen again. And it's I don't like it. I know how great they were. But the cheating is supposed to be what disqualifies you, like at the Naval Academy or at the Masters or whatever. And there's enough there for me to say that's what they were doing, especially toward the end of the career in some cases. And therefore you're DQ'd. So it's a tricky aspect, and we have not had a surge of really qualified candidates come on the ballot. Jeter was the last one that was a slam dunk. He comes on there. Rivera before him. You want those guys to come on, and because then you can vote for them and have a good feeling about your vote. No one knows anything, and I understand. The ballot is sort of teed up for us to all be jackasses. I get that. I accept it. I just wish people. It's great that people are passionate about it, and those who want to vote for people, knock yourselves out, and you just ask the same respect in return when some of us don't.
Do you ever get personally? Do you ever get kind of ticked off when a certain story maybe has 50% of people just pissed off at you? Do you ever get kind of ticked off at that, and you start getting the emails, or is that part of your job? Do you know
Well,
that's part of the game?
It's just you just tell. I just tell my children, just don't go on the internet. It's like this. The bravery of the anonymity has brought out a lot of bold people, and everybody likes to jump in. So there's the comments under the article, and there's the emails, and knock yourselves out. This is supposed to be entertainment and fun, and we can disagree about whether Manny Ramirez should be in the Hall of Fame and not dislike each other. I mean, we can talk about things and have fun and enjoy it and go on from there. It should not be disqualifying or make you a horrible person if we disagree about sports.
Clemens and Bonds, who you just mentioned, two massive egos. How were they personally to you?
Well, Roger, we had a lot of ups and downs. I covered him through a lot, and I think he's really tried hard to redeem his image, and he does a ton of charity work, doesn't get credit for it, and he was a great pitcher. He's like Walter Johnson of his era, won 7 Cy Youngs and 354 games, whatever. And I think he takes a little bit too much grief around here. I don't vote for him, and I regret that. What I think he was cheating at the end. I think he was using after he left here. I think that's unfortunate. Bonds I had no relationship with. He was snarly, and he was hitting 73 homers and had the thing going out there. But Barry did nothing to endear himself to anyone. I didn't get a sense his teammates liked him or anything. But I mean, his numbers on paper, it was just off the charts.
All right, Dan Shaughnessy, we always end the show with a few rapid fire sections. First thing that comes to mind, you good?
Sure.
Keep them sports centric to start. Let's go old garden or new garden?
Old garden. I mean, I understand the creature comforts of the air conditioning and all that, but I was there when the Celtics, it was an offensive weapon for them to make the other team sweat it out or whatever you had. It was a good thing.
Best interview you ever did, maybe caught you off guard.
I mean, I'm honored to have talked to Ted Williams, Bobby Orr, those things. Just the fact to get to know those guys, yes, and that's been a great honor for me.
What is the deal with Yaz, by the way? He doesn't necessarily like being in the ballpark, right?
He's not a people pleaser. He doesn't want to be bothered. He just wants to fish by himself, and he doesn't mean any harm by it. But he doesn't enjoy people rushing up to him and telling him how he changed their lives in '67. He's kind of like one of the Beatles that way. I think he's had it enough, and he gave us his game, and we leave him alone most of the time. He's a little bit of a kind of a funny, crusty guy. Like, he throws out the first pitch. I always tease. I said, you can hear the wheels screeching on Van Ness Street, like in the bottom of the first. He's out of there, and God bless him.
That's funny. Did he stay when his nephew played?
No.
He left?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Worst interview?
Again, it's not their job to make our job easier, and that's okay. If a guy is intentionally difficult and jerks people around, wastes the camera crew's time, wait around, I'll get you later, and then stiffs them, and just that sort of thing. If a guy doesn't want to talk, that's okay. Like Manny, a lot of times wasn't talking. That was fine. You don't take it out on the guy for that. Consistency, again, is okay. I found Nomar extremely unpleasant and difficult for no reason. I mean, he was a great player. He was great to the fans. We wrote great things about him because why wouldn't you? And he just hated it. And I didn't appreciate the way people were treated when he was around.
You almost felt like he worked himself out of town, didn't you?
Oh, my, it was awful. I don't know what that, he had the attitude about us, but then it turned into everything. By 2004, he wouldn't play in that game in New York and demanded to be traded. And I mean, it really worked out sadly for him, because as soon as they traded him, they won the World Series, and he was on a Hall of Fame path. I mean, you look up his early numbers. The man hit 370 as a right-handed hitter. That's impossible.
Yeah.
He was like DiMaggio. I mean, he was just a great hitter.
Do you agree with me, though? My take is they do not win that World Series if they do not make that trade, because Cabrera was just unbelievable and gave them.
Was good. It tightened up. Francona, I'll tell you that. Obviously the whole day of the dealing, Dave Roberts came in that day as well, and Mankiewicz playing first, and just tightening up the infield defense late in games. And Cabrera, he was never better, and he was fearless, and he got a lot of big plays and big hits for them.
Best game you ever watched in person?
Oh man, I think there was a Friday night in New York. It was Clemens and Pedro, and just look it up. It was Pedro. He had that 19 where he struck out 19 Yankees and 17 Yankees one game, but it was the last 8 or 9 in order through the ninth. And just there were nights in New York. And man, I was at the Bucky Dent game. I was at the Aaron Boone game. Some of the comebacks the Sox made against the Angels. There's just, there's too many to list.
All right, final couple. Favorite movie?
I'm kind of a Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, or Casablanca, I guess.
All right. Favorite musician?
It would be Bruce Springsteen or Paul McCartney.
You got me on that. We're both Bruce guys. Very good. Favorite concert? Is it a Bruce show?
I'd say Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young at the Old Garden.
All right, very good. And your best career advice? We get a lot of high school kids on this show. We cover a lot of the athletes making news, that sort of thing. Whatever. What's the best career advice you ever got?
Well, I mean, just get out of the house and go talk to people. Don't sit on your couch and watch TV and write your opinions. Just tell me something about what's around you. That's how you learn, and that's how we learn as readers.
Absolutely. Dan Shaughnessy, thank you for all the great articles and interviews over the years. And thank you so much for doing this show. We appreciate it so much.
Thanks, Drew. I enjoyed it. Good luck with the show.
All right. Very cool. The great Dan Shaughnessy. Doesn't get any. He has critics, of course, and you'll hear people who say they can't stand that Shaughnessy. As you heard him say in that interview, he doesn't really care about that very much, which is what I've always kind of admired about him. And, he's not pressured to write anything or say anything. And I don't know, very cool. And a great writer. He's always been that. So even if you're not a fan, you can respect that. Opening day. Thought that would be a good little interview for you. Red Sox baseball, ready to go. Doesn't that make you feel all warm and summery and all that good stuff? Dan Shaughnessy, thank you so much. My name is Drew Moholland. This has been Live at Drew's House, another edition. That does it for the week. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.